Rock isn't dead. It's in flux. Hi everyone, I'm Britt with Rock and Flux, and I'm joined today by Twin Tribes, which is made up of Luis Navarro and Joel Nino. Thank you guys for being here to talk to me today.
Hey, thank you for having us.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
Yeah, so let's get started. I always start off with the same question. I know you all formed in 2017. How did you kind of get together to start making music? And just kind of give me your backstory a little bit.
Yeah, it was the summer of 2017 when we first started writing demos for Twin Tribes. We met through a mutual friend, and we used to be in a previous band, for several years until I started writing some demos. I wanted to start this new project, and I asked Joel if he was interested. We got together that summer, and we just started writing song after song after song. We clicked, and ever since then, we've been making music together.
Cool. And I mean, you guys have been doing pretty well. I feel like it's starting to pick up steam for y'all, which is really great because I think your music is really good. So you're based in Texas. And I know when we were scheduling this, you said that you both live in separate towns. How far apart are you from each other typically?
Yeah, we're about an hour apart from each other. Typically if we're gonna, like today, we kind of got together. We're, working on new music and also, rehearsing. So yeah, it's about an hour drive. We used to live together, right? So it was a lot easier to make music, but it's a small little thing.
So it's not like insanely far. So, because that was my question then would be, if you do live like farther apart, how does your writing process typically go? Do you kind of get together in a room, or do you do things separately and just kind of go back and forth like digitally, or how do you all, typically do that?
I think the first album was kind of a combination of both. We started, just sharing ideas, emailing back and forth ideas like, hey, I have this idea, I have this riff, add this, remove that. And then some of the other songs were, let's get together for practice and, try things out, jam it out, and songs were born. Even when we were living together, we were still emailing each other, it's super weird and random, but it seems to work for us. And right now, Joel's based out of McAllen. Like you said, it's an hour away, and I'm here in Brownsville, and just emailing ideas seems to work. And once we have, something to work with, we'll get together, jam it out. And I think that's mainly the formula, right?
Yeah, we just whittle away. Little by little, we'll form a song through email, a combination of email and getting together.
And the other question I have too, being in Texas, you're more of like a dark wave, new wave inspired band. Texas, I've only been to a few areas of it, but stereotypically it's like more country music type of place. How has the reception been playing shows there? Do you fill places where people are receptive to it? Like, I would just be curious about that locally anyway.
I mean, it's pretty interesting. I mean, like everywhere you turn around, you'll see a cowboy and a horse, I'm just kidding. But no, yeah, it's pretty random, I guess, especially being based off of like Brownsville, which is like border town, southernmost tip of Texas. There's really not many places to play or a dark wave or post-punk scene here. So initially when we started playing in San Antonio, which is 4 hours from where we are, and where there's actually, like more places to play or a scene and things like that.
Right.
Yeah, that's the gist of it. We kind of had to get out what we call the valley here. We had to get out of the valley to kind of find our scene, find other bands that are also in the same genre. But even then, when we first started going up there, we would open just for DJs. It would be like a DJ night, right? Like 80s night or a dark wave night or something. And we would be sometimes the only band of the night besides the DJ. So that's kind of how we started off. And yeah, I think, different scenes in Texas have really welcomed us, especially San Antonio. We definitely call San Antonio like our home away from home. On Saturday, we have a show there that just sold out. So like they've always been so welcoming to us, and we're really lucky that they took us in.
Nice. I mean, because it is. I think music, especially now, has become so niched in some ways that like you kind of have to find that community, so to speak. And I mean, when you look all over the country, there's a huge scene of like the new wave 80s inspired bands, but when you're local, it's always interesting to me, like the different areas people are in. Like a lot of them are in LA. Well, that's so simple and easy. But for bands like you all, it could be a little bit different. So I'm glad you found somewhere in your home state that you have that with. And so you all kind of have an aesthetic. So I've watched your videos and, seen the different stuff that you all have on social media and everything. You kind of have like a vampire aesthetic when you play. How did that kind of come about? Did you always just kind of like those types of characters and wanted to kind of incorporate that? Tell me about how that kind of happened.
I mean, I have been a vampire so many years for Halloween, so I guess you can say it's pretty serious.
Yeah. Absolutely.
My AOL screen name used to have Buffy in it, so I was like,
nice. Oh, natural enemies.
And it's just something that kind of goes hand in hand. The music, and it's a whole show, right? It's not just about the music. It's about the whole vibe. It's about lights and fog and, darkness and the music. And it also, I think that when I see a band and I see the entire package, which is like the image and the music and everything, like you see David Bowie or you see like bands like The Clash, where you feel like they have the entire package. Like, I feel like that always caught my attention. Or Kiss, huge Kiss fan. So I kind of like thought that, as we started, it was a search. We were searching what works with us and, what looks cool to us. And, so little by little, we started finding things that I guess we liked.
Yeah, it was a bit of an evolving period for us as far as like stage show, as it should be for any band, right? You kind of find yourself and what makes you most comfortable on stage. And yeah, it was a little bit of an evolving period for us. I think right now it's more like a Western Gothic kind of thing that we have going on. A lot of people say, hey, you've got the boots, you wear like the bolo ties. And so we get that a lot, the Texas Goth kind of thing. But, it's cool to kind of bring all of it together, like Louis said, into a package. Because, like those are the people that inspired us. Everybody that he said, Bowie, The Clash, The Cure, everybody had an image. And of course, we've found...
I think it's really cool. And I agree. I think it is the overall package. It's not just one thing that ends up making a band or, it's art really. So let's start talking about like some of your past albums. So you released Shadows. That was your first album, right? In 2018.
Yes.
And the title track was Shadows. You have a music video for that. That's basically, she's like a vampire is what I'm assuming is kind of the concept. Can you tell me about like, what makes you choose specific songs to be singles and then do a video with them? And then how did that concept kind of come about?
I think that Shadows was probably one of the first or the first song that we worked on, right?
Yeah, the first one we completed.
So the moment that we completed that song, we knew that was going to be a single. It was catchy. It had everything that we were looking for. It makes you dance and it's dark.
Dancey. I hear The Cure in it with the guitars and everything too. Yeah.
Definitely. And the whole vibe of the music video, it was shot by one of our friends in close by in Harlingen, Texas. And the song is originally inspired by the movie The Hunger. So it does have, like lyrics about, vampires and the director put in a lot of his own things, right? And it kind of just went from there.
Yeah. And it was really honestly, do it yourself kind of thing. Like it all kind of came together. He was living in Georgia or Tennessee, something. Like he's like, well, I'm going to be down in the valley because he's originally from Harlingen. And he's like, I'm going to be down in the valley for the summer or something. And he's like, who wants to, work with me and do a video? And we're just like, dude, perfect. Like we want a video.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And it all kind of came together. Like the actresses, they brought in their own thing. Like they brought in like, if you see in the video, there's different little like
the props.
Yeah. And a lot of that's the actress. So, but yeah, it all came together. And it was really
plan
cool.
Comes together.
Absolutely. Yeah. It was quite the experience, being our first video.
Yeah, it turned out really well. I wouldn't have known it was your first. And then another video from that album was Tower of Glass. I don't know if I'm accurate with this at all or if I'm way off, but it reminded me of the video for Cars by Gary Newman. With like I don't know, like just the aesthetic of it and everything. I don't know if that was intentional at all or not, but it just reminded me of that.
Honestly, Tower of Glass was another very DIY video that was actually shot in this place. This used to be a garage.
Okay.
Lalo, one of our crew members, he's the one that shot the entire thing along with another friend. The whole vibe was him, the shots. We really didn't think anything through. He said, I have an idea for a music video. Can y'all give me a shot? And we said, go for it. Sure. It was shot like in the summer of maybe 2018 or 2019, I think. And it was extremely hot to shoot it inside this garage with fog in here. And then it was a mess, but it was very fun.
Okay, so you released Ceremony. That was your follow-up album to Shadows in 2019. Still kind of keeping your sound, but it's definitely like evolved, and I think your production has gotten more and more polished, I guess, as you all have kind of gone along. So you released a video for that as well, for Heart and Feather was a song that you did. I found that song interesting because, and I guess a lot of your songs kind of have it, but like in some ways you sing a little deeper. So the vocals sound darker than the music sometimes, because the music can be like very dancey and almost kind of poppy in some ways, but then the vocals are dark. Is that done intentionally?
Yeah, definitely. I think that adding a little bit of, versatility, and we want to make sure that the chorus has a nice hook. Yeah. And, you mentioned the video for Heart and Feather that was shot somewhere in, I think, a national park in California by our friend Sultan Mars. I think that it comes from, inspiration from bands that we admire, along with, bands from, current bands and old bands, and try to get a mixture of both, because we're not just tied to listening to dark wave music. Yeah. There is that, dark wave influence, but you will also notice that there's some new wave in there, like you said, a little mixture of both.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Yeah. And I mean, that's the thing. I was actually going to ask you, like, who are some of your influences? Obviously, you can hear The Cure and things like that, but some others that people may not necessarily expect. Because, I mean, I think most of us, especially if you really love music, you listen to a variety of things. Like, we might have a type that we prefer. Like, I love Depeche Mode. I love The Cure. I love all of that stuff. So I tend to gravitate toward it. But I'll also listen to, like, Red Hot Chili Peppers or other, random band. You know what I mean? So, like, what would be some of your other influences that maybe people would be surprised by?
Yeah, I mean, maybe not so much surprised, but David Bowie, I gravitate towards those big, like, personas. So, like, David Bowie was always a big influence on me. My mom would listen to Juan Gabriel, who's, like, a really famous Mexican singer, and that was, like, a big, influence for me as well. Just the way he puts on a show is flashy and just, very, very, like, a professional, in an entertainer kind of way. But yeah, as Luis mentioned, like the Cure has always been a big influence. A lot of the newer bands that kind of came out right as we were also coming out, like, Drab Majesty, Choir Boy, a couple of the ones, Second Still, were some of those that we would kind of listen to a lot. And so those were also major influences.
Yeah, definitely. To name a couple more, aside from, the ones that you can pinpoint by listening to our music, I'm a huge Johnny Marr fan from the Smiths. So a lot of my guitar tone gravitates to Johnny Marr. Huge rock en español fan. So, Caifanes, Soda Stereo, a lot of that new wave, Mexican or Spanish or Latin new wave. And like Joel said, a lot of new artists when we were starting, like Drab Majesty, Choir Boy, and
she passed
away.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was actually going to compare you all to Drab Majesty, who I think they're great too, just because of like the whole aesthetic and vibe. You guys are similar in that way because they have their like personas that they use to perform too. And I honestly, in doing this podcast, I guess because I gravitate to that type of music, I've paid attention to all of those bands, and it really feels like there's kind of like a community building, especially because, and we're going to get to this, I noticed remixes done by, each other's music, like you'll choose a song and two bands will like flop and do that. And I don't know, I think it's really neat. And I don't know if we'd be able to have something like that if it wasn't for the technology that we have today, with like streaming and social and all that stuff. Like it makes it way more accessible.
Yeah. And just working together in general, right? Again, it's, as you mentioned before, very niche, very like a small scene, you could say. So yeah, like you get to meet all these bands eventually and kind of like mingle with them, and of course put out, as you mentioned, remixes for each other, kind of help support each other and kind of like really push the scene by doing so.
Honestly, I think it's growing. I think there's a big interest in that type of music, and I think this nostalgia for 80s and 90s is becoming more and more popular. And I just think it's going to continue to grow. It's funny because like I have the website that goes along with the podcast, and I obviously get like all the analytics and stuff from it. And I wrote it a couple years ago, but I wrote a piece about New Wave and its history and all that sort of stuff. And even now, it is the most popular page on that site.
Wow.
So, I mean, like people are looking for that kind of stuff. I find it really interesting.
And I think that in this genre, I think remixes might be even more popular. Speaking as a musician and like that we've played in other genres, I don't think we had ever even done a remix before, right?
No.
So it's very cool to be able to add into one of your artists that you admire or a friend, and just kind of support each other. The scene has been like very supportive to us.
Yeah, I just think it's working together. It's being supportive of each other, and I mean it's all about the music. Which is, that's in the end goal. Like I had an episode with Jake, the lead singer of Health, and he was talking about doing remixes. And he's like, we don't really care what the size of the band is that we're, working with. We just care that we like their music. And I think that that's really cool. I like when musicians are about that and not like they don't get the ego. And I don't think that this scene, even though like industrial, I think plays a part into it too. I just don't like so far. I have not met anyone who is like rude or a jerk or, everyone's been really nice and really cool. So let me ask you this. We talked about your writing process and how you all kind of work together. For people who have never listened to any of your music, what is a song that maybe they should start with or that you think they should listen to first, if you had to suggest one?
That's tough. Right? We both have, I guess, our personal favorites. If it comes down to one, I guess, I don't know how you feel, Joel. For me, I guess I would say Talisman from our first album, Shadows, is always one of the songs that I constantly, I guess, single out whenever they ask.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with you. There are a few that we both, really like, but I think for both of us kind of playing it live and also listening to it, like that is definitely a favorite for sure.
Cool. Let's listen to it. And then is there any reason other than what you kind of already described that you think this resonates with people well when you perform it and everything?
Not sure. Like Joel mentioned, it's a great song to play live. It's not even a fast paced song, but it's very dreamy and like it's cool to see. It's cool to see the crowd vibe and just kind of sway away the night. We usually close out the night with that song. Most of the times. So I guess it's just it's very cool to see it live.
Yeah, and I think it kind of captures a little bit of everything of who we are, right? It has a little bit of darkness in it, has a little bit of beauty, like as far as like, the notes that are being played, a great melody that Luis sings. It's just honestly like, yeah, it's just very magical.
Okay, so the latest album that you released was Altars, and that's what we're getting into now. So that was an album of all remixes. And it's basically you working with different artists like Geometric Vision, Wingtips, She Passed Away. They're remixing your song, basically, is what is going on. Can you tell me how you recorded that, how you chose the different bands that were on it, and kind of, about the recording process?
Yeah, we didn't really have an idea of, let's do a remix album. It just happened organically. I think we were reached out by Nat Black for a remix. They remixed Shadows. And once we listened to that remix, we just kind of got like the idea of like, what if we do a remix album? What if we, send these artists or friends a couple of our tracks and see if, how this goes. Also, this was 2020. It was just like right when the pandemic had hit. Yeah. There was no shows, no tours. So, everybody just helped out and it worked out really well.
Yeah. We reached out to, bands that we played with, pre-pandemic, bands that we admired to kind of see what if they were interested in it. And honestly, we got more songs that were able to be put on the album. So we were very, I guess, blessed with, all those great songs. We would send them a track, they would send it back, and we'd just be like, wow, like, how is this, possible? How did they make it sound so like different and really like keep our sound, but also bring their kind of influence and spice to it. So it was a really cool experience, I think, for us.
Definitely.
Cool. They really do make it like basically a new song, even though it's a remix, it sounds, and you can tell it is that song, but it's so interesting to me how music can be that way and changed like that, just by changing a few elements of a composition. And then you've remixed songs for other artists too, like Boot Blacks and Night.
Yeah, we've done a couple more. We did do a remix for Nights. I think that was one of our earlier remixes. We did a remix for Boot Blacks. We did a remix for Clan of Cymox.
Kursmaki.
For Kursmaki, for Nuremberg. There's going to be another remix that we did release soon. Can't really say whose or when, but you'll see it soon. But yeah, we've done a couple, and it's always fun. I remember we were playing, I think, somewhere in San Francisco or doing sound check, and then Ronnie from Clan of Cymox just says, "Hey, y'all want to do a remix for us?" Yeah, sure.
And that was it. And that was the agreement.
Nice. So it's just the two of you in the band. When you play live, do you have other members that play with you, or is it still just the two of you on stage?
Just the two of us. We've been in previous bands, so we know kind of like that chemistry of having quite a few members. While you travel, while you write. Yeah. So we really embraced just me and him, kind of, easy decisions, easy for us to kind of get on the road, play live. And plus, it kind of goes with the music, right? It's that electronic, we do have a drum machine that we use to kind of trigger on stage. Probably be bringing that back. We have backing tracks. But yeah, it really is part of that aesthetic. So not that we haven't gotten a lot of inquiries to be our drummer, like it's almost feels like we get a new one every month.
I was going to ask you, because playing to a backing track comes with its level of potential issues, because you got to make sure that track is like right on time. So how do you deal with that in a live show? And has it ever gone wrong for you?
Oh, definitely. Well, honestly, it's been like we mentioned, it's a work in progress. When we started the band, it was just learning and learning and learning. It's like, okay, so we wrote these songs. Now, how are we going to trigger them live? And what equipment are we going to use? And we have, had technical difficulties in the past. We've had our pedal that triggers our tracks die in the middle of a show or right before a show.
Huge show.
So we ended up playing. This happened just once in San Antonio, and our pedal died, and we only ended up playing like 3 songs because that's what we had. Those were the only tracks that we had, and we had to borrow a laptop, and it was a little bit of a mess. But they're all learning experiences. And, the track, once we make the track is always on time. The issue is us playing with the track.
Right.
So, everything has been a learning experience. Thankfully, like after that happened, we figured out a way for it to like not happen. We have like 3 backups every time we tour. So if something dies, we have another one and we have another one. And then we have everything on Google Drive or Dropbox, so it's everywhere in case this never happens again.
Yeah. It was traumatic experience for us.
I can't even imagine. You do.
Yeah.
There's always a learning curve with life. So have you done any full tours? I was trying to look at your tour history. You've played a lot of different shows, and it looks like smaller tours for a few different spots. Like, just tell me about your show history, and then any future touring that you are trying to plan out.
Yeah. So like since we began, that was the goal. Tour as much as we can, play as much as we can, really grind it out. I think that was one of the agreements. Like when we got together, we're like, if we're going to do this, like, let's do it. I don't want to just half-ass it.
Right.
So that's one of those things that we knew right from the start we wanted to do. We both had full-time jobs back then. So we had to kind of like plan our tours around our off days. So basically whenever we had vacations, anytime, Luis used to be a teacher. So we would plan around, the holidays, the school holidays. Yeah. And that's when we would go on tour. So that's why we would have like stretches of like a month, a few weeks.
We would tour for like maybe a week and a half or 2 weeks max back then. And it came to a point where we just started touring or getting more offers and more offers. And eventually we, made the leap. Joel made the leap as well. So we, no longer had those jobs. And I think it was in 2021 where we did the first full month tour, working with Rocky Road. We toured a month in the US. We had maybe like 2 weeks off or a week off. And then we did another month in Europe, which was pretty exhausting. And we came back. And I think ever since then, we did another stretch with Boy Harsher, which was almost a month. And after that, I think that all of our tours have been like a little less than a month, maybe like 3.5 weeks. It is kind of exhausting, and our families. And so, yeah, that's kind of how we started.
Yeah, it is a preference, to be honest. Could we be out there grinding like, 3 months in a row? Sure, we could do that. But, like Luis mentioned, we do have families. We do have, loved ones. We have our own businesses that we kind of come back to. So we want to have time for that as well.
It's got to be mentally exhausting and physically exhausting to do that day after day after day after day.
Yeah, and props to those who do it, because it is a grind on the mind and on the body.
Yeah, it's tough, especially if you're like very far away from home, foreign country, don't have comfort food, you get sick, you don't understand the language, can't communicate, don't know how to work a washing machine. So it is.
I was going to ask too, because I always like to ask people who have played here and Europe, like, are the crowds different? Like, is the reception different? And what is it like? Because at least if you're in your own country, people speak the language, you have like some sense of stability. But if you're out in a country that you don't know anybody, you don't speak the language, it's a whole different world. And if something goes wrong, it's a completely different situation. So I was going to ask you about that.
Yeah, it's totally different. The U.S. from Europe and even countries within Europe, every country is very different. And the people are very different. So I think the biggest thing is just communication, right? Where, like Luis mentioned, something as simple as we're a band, we've been on the road, we need to wash our clothes here. Okay, let's find a laundromat. Like in Europe, you're like, okay, well, let's find a laundromat. Great. Okay, I don't know how to turn this thing on because there's all these instructions in another language. And so we had to ask somebody that was walking by, hey, like, can you help us? And even that interaction's like, they don't know what we're talking about. And we're just like, turn this thing on, you know? So yeah, something as simple as that can like just really stress you out. And it's like, damn.
Yeah, it's definitely a culture shock, and the crowds are totally different country by country. But for example, I don't think we had ever played an encore before until we went to Europe.
Yeah.
And I thought that it was just like, all right, we're in our first show. It's London. They asked for an encore. That was weird. We're not even prepared for an encore, but we're going to play the same song, the same song that we played during our set. The crowd didn't care. They went nuts. But as we continued to tour, every city wanted an encore. And in the US, that's weird.
It was definitely weird, especially because we were saying no. We're like, no, we can't. We don't have any more songs. What do you want us to play? The same song?
It's a good problem to have, though.
Yeah. The promoters like, yeah, play the same song again, and we're just like, okay. So we were back there legit for like what? 7-8 minutes saying no, and the crowd's just like they're still wanting more, and we're just like, all right, screw it, let's just do it. And that was that first encore for us. It's pretty cool.
It is so funny how like different countries do things differently. Because I was in London and I remember like they had something on the menu and it was like tomato, mozzarella, and basil, which is like very common here. And when I ordered it, the girl warned me. She's like, it's not what you think, because I'm very clearly an American. So she was like, she's like, it is not what you think at all. And it has mayo and it's like mixed together and stuff. And I was like, mayo on mozzarella? Like, it just sounds wrong. But I don't know. They just do it differently, I guess. I don't know.
So. Totally.
That's rough too. Like, speaking of food, like we could not order food for the life of us. Like, we tried so hard. We went to maybe a McDonald's in every country over there,
right?
Simply because it's a menu. They'll know what we're talking about.
And it's what's on the road.
And it's on the road.
And even then, we would try to order something and they would like give us like coffees and what? We didn't order this, but damn, okay.
Yeah, we'll take the coffee, sure.
Yeah, why not? It's very interesting. But that's all amazing that you've been able to tour here and there, because not everybody gets to do that. So, and are you planning another month run then anytime soon? Our plan is to go back abroad, Europe, South America, Mexico, Canada, and we're hoping that 2024 is the year for us. Mm-hmm. So that's it's looking like it's more likely, right?
Yeah.
So we're definitely looking to do that. As far as here in the States, we're in the middle of kind of confirming some dates and getting a couple of tours going for mid to late this year. We are working on a new album, but that's in the works.
Mm-hmm.
Nice. So I always ask everyone who comes on this show this question. And I've gotten a variety of answers that are actually interesting. But the question I always ask is, do you think rock is dead? Because that's the whole branding of the show, and I think it's in flux, but I always like to see what the artists and bands that come on here, what their opinions are.
Well, I mean, I'm a huge Bad Bunny fan, but I think that there's other genres of music that have surpassed rock in the previous years, but I don't think it's dead. I think that especially in this scene, we've seen a wave of new artists that have a lot of 80s characteristics or new wave characteristics, pop up, and it's great. It's great to see the scene get bigger and bigger, and
I mean, as far as like if you look at what time period we're living in, it's kind of impossible for it to be completely dead, right? We have our audience that we've kind of cultivated through social media and through touring, and so basically, I think if you're a good band and you can find your audience and you're playing rock and roll, or you're playing dark wave, you're playing industrial, whatever it is in the rock genre, you can find those people. You just gotta obviously they've gotta connect with the music, but
right.
I don't think it's ever going to be entirely dead. I think it's there. It's got a very soft heartbeat, but I think it's here to stay.
I think all of that is I think rock is the umbrella for music, because it all kind of intertwines on itself, and essentially rock came from R&B. So when you think about it, it all, I don't know, it all kind of melds together. So, but when you hear that, you think of the classic rock and roll type of stuff. Anything else you would like our listeners to know about Twin Tribes?
I mean, you can keep up to date through our Instagram, our socials, or Facebook. We're basically everywhere. You can listen to our music if this is the first time that you hear about us. We're on every digital platform you can think of, and hopefully new music's going to be available soon.
Yeah, and come out to a show. I think the music is amazing and it's great, and it's one thing to listen to it on your phone or however, or on Spotify and all that good stuff, but nothing compares to kind of seeing a live show with other people that also like the same music you do. So yeah, come on out, come check us out.
That's the test of a band is their live show. So you gotta test it out if you really want to be a fan. So thank you very much for being with me here today. It's been a really nice conversation with both of you. I wish you the most success, and I will support whatever you all are doing however I can. So it's Twin Tribes, at Twin Tribes on Instagram, and at Rock and Flux IG on Instagram. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.